Excellent. All right, hello everybody. I'm so excited to see so many people here at the end of the day. And I'm really excited to be here talking to you about enterprise ops, in particular managing your business on GCP and beyond. Now, I know I am the last thing between you and tasty beverages. So I'm going to get to the point. And my hope is that if there's one thing that you take away from this presentation, is that we have you covered, either natively on GCP or through our growing ecosystem of partners, to help you address your enterprise ops needs, in particular automation, governance, risk, compliance. So this is a high-level agenda of what I'm going to talk about. The first half of the session, I'm going to be focusing primarily on what we're doing on GCP. And then I'm going to turn it over to our partners, who we announced today, Splunk and BMC, and they're going to come on stage and demonstrate some of their integrations and tell you a little bit more about the applications and what you can do with them. So broadly, I'm going to just talk a little bit about some of the management tools that are available to you, dive a little bit into automation, governance, risk, and compliance, and then I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into Cloud Audit Logs, which is a new service that we're launching, and I'm really quite excited about. So, intuitive, intelligent management. One of the great things about the cloud platform is that you don't have to work with multiple systems that don't talk to each other. You don't have to deal with multiple vendors, a wide variety of systems to provision resources. If you want to generate a new VM, if you want to get new storage, if you want to change your networking, it can all be done from within the same place. You can you can easily provision resources with a single click, and more importantly, easily deprovision them. So you no longer have to deal with that world where adding new resources requires a PO. It's really just a single click. We also want to ensure that you can manage your environment your way. And what does that mean? What we know is that there are lots of different people who are managing these environments, and you have different preferences for how you're going to want to work with this. Many of you may want to come to this and work with a web UI like I demonstrated on the last page, our Cloud Console. But many of you are going to want to interact with it through an API or through the command line interface. And so we make sure that all of our services expose their capabilities through a REST API, through a command line interface, as well as that Cloud Console. Now, when problems happen, and as they always do, they often happen when you're not in front of your desktop. And so to complement that, or to help deal with that situation, we provide a mobile management and monitoring tool so you can download this mobile Cloud Console for Android or iOS. And it allows you to look and see your environment. So you can see, you can do the network monitoring, you can look at logs. If you want to interact with individual resources, you can do that as well. For instance, you can look and see this VM is causing you problems, and you can stop it, delete it. And if you really want to connect to it via SSH on your phone, you can do that too. So now I gave you a little, that was really just kind of a highlight overview of some of the management tools that are available to you. I'm going to touch briefly now on automation, governance, risk, compliance. And the first area I want to focus on is automation. Now, you probably heard a lot about this in the keynote this morning, how Google has really been very active with containers for a long time and have built out great tools for managing that. And that has enabled us to grow our infrastructure and our workloads much faster than we've needed to grow our ops team to support that. And with that, based on that experience, we've developed Kubernetes, which is an open source container orchestration system. And we've made it available. It's governed by an independent foundation and is enjoying broad industry support. Importantly, we're embracing the concept of multi-cloud, as well as on-prem VM, bare metal, so you can use Kubernetes in all these situations. And to make it easier for you, particularly when working with GCP, we provide Container Engine, which is a fully managed and hosted Kubernetes system that allows you to very easily create and deploy clusters with a single click. Now, I'm not going to talk too much more about this because you probably heard a little bit about it at the keynote, but there's also a great talk tomorrow at 11 a.m. going into much more detail about Container Engine. So I would encourage you to go to that. One thing that we know is that as companies are moving to the cloud, you're often either coming from on-prem or you're in a multi-cloud environment, which means you're already using tools for IT automation. And there's a large number of open source tools out there that people are using. And we want you to be able to continue to use the tools that you're comfortable with as you come to the cloud. So we have a lot of, we encourage our engineers to participate in these open source projects and to contribute to them to ensure that all these tools work just as well on GCP, or to ensure that you can add GCP support to them. Now, governance. This is going to be quick, because not because it's not important, because I know governance is really important, and one of our top feature requests is around identity and access management. But there's a whole talk tomorrow at 2:15 solely focused on identity and access management, talking about the capabilities that we have there. And so I would really encourage you to attend that talk as well. And now lastly in this section, risk and compliance. This is an area that I know is incredibly important to enterprises and large organizations. And every year we participate in independent audits of our infrastructure, our services, our different operations. And the goal here is to be comprehensive and to provide assurances of the information security to help you with, to help you feel comfortable with this and to meet your security and compliance needs. So you can see we've met a number of cloud platform certifications. As a result of that, we're also able to sign business associate agreements if you're working in a HIPAA-regulated environment. And then thinking more about data security and privacy, just this past December, we launched EU model contract clauses to help you with managing your EU data. One of the important things when you're thinking about risk and compliance, though, is it's great and very important that the platform has these certifications so that you can feel comfortable with the platform that you're using. But it's also really important for you to be able to know what you're doing on the platform, because that plays a major role there as well. And this ties in nicely to my next topic, which are cloud audit logs. So this is a new service that we're providing to allow you to understand who did what, where, and when on Google Cloud Platform. And it's built on the same proven and scalable infrastructure that powers all of our other cloud logging services. And what's nice about this is that the events that are captured in these logs, they're available to you in the Cloud Console, as was demonstrated in the keynote this morning, as well alongside all the other logs in Stackdriver, which you probably saw as well. And this requires no configuration on your part. They're just there. They're available to you. And this has actually been really embraced by a lot of our early customers who've been using this. This quote from Snapchat, from Subhashri says, "Snapchat handles sensitive user data and entrusts Google Cloud Platform with its storage. Cloud audit logging provides us with the ability to monitor this data across a variety of resource types in near real time and for our teams to take timely action if needed." So that's meeting our goals. This is what we want you to be able to do. So I want to talk a little bit more about the audit logs themselves, because this is important to understand. There are actually two different types of audit logs. The first one is the admin activity log. And this captures every user action or API method that modifies the configuration or metadata of a service or a project. So for instance, when you set the IAM policy, if you create a new project, if you deploy a new App Engine application, all of those get captured here. Those are actions that you're taking that make a change to the service of the project. And these are always on for every project. No work required on your part. They're just available. And this is true for all the services that have completed their integration with the App Engine infrastructure, the audit logging infrastructure. And I say there are no exemptions, and that means basically, everything that you do gets logged. All of these actions get logged. Now, the data access log is a little bit different. This is where we capture all of your interactions, whether they're modifications or just reads, with user data that's provided, or user-provided data that's managed by the service. So as an example of this with BigQuery, when you import data to a table in BigQuery, or if you export data from BigQuery, or if you do a query within BigQuery, all of these get captured in the data access log. And we've broken them out into two different logs because they have different use cases. And also, the data access log tends to be a lot higher volume than the admin activity log. So we don't want there to be one to flood the other out. I would say these are generally, the model for these are they're mostly opt-in for the data access logs. You would have to explicitly turn it on. Although right now, the BigQuery audit logs are on by default for everybody because there's been such positive feedback about the value that they have in understanding your utilization of BigQuery. And there's one last point here. So I had said with the admin activity logs, there were no exemptions. But with the data access logs, we do have the capability for you to exempt certain service accounts from data access logging. Now, this isn't a self-serve process at the moment, but the idea here is that you really want to understand, when your users are looking at data, not necessarily when your high QPS application is querying the data. So if you have a known trusted application running as a service account, you can tell us that, and we will exempt that from the logging. As I said, going back to governance, we're introducing IAM. There are a number of access roles that are relevant here. There's the logs reader role, which grants you access to the admin activity logs. There's the private logs reader role, and this is a separate permission that grants you access to the data access logs independent of the admin activity logs. And we do this because the data access logs contains information about your access to user-provided data. So often there's a different level of sensitivity about who gets to see those logs. There's also a config writer role, which allows you to change or configure the export settings with the logging system, and that you may not want to have the person who is interacting with those logs also being able to change that. And then lastly, there's this logs writer role, which I put up here because it's actually not relevant to audit logs, because audit logs are special with respect to the other type of logs that we collect, and that they're immutable, and nobody can write to them except for Google services. So App Engine can write to these, but you as a user can't call the logging API and put logs into the audit log streams. So where do we stand right now? This is where we are with admin activity logs. We have a number of services in beta. They'll be launching to GA soon. And we have a large number of other services coming soon in the next couple of months. And the coming soon means they're either in private alpha with a number of early users, or will be so shortly. Data access logs. BigQuery is already providing data access logs for everybody. If you haven't seen them, they're there. And Cloud SQL and Cloud Storage will be following soon. So now I'm going to change gears and let me just do a quick demonstration. Let me just log in to show you the audit logs in action. So what you can see here is, as was demonstrated earlier in the keynote today, is the activity stream. And you can see the different interactions that have happened inside this project. So if you look down here at the bottom, you can see I created this project. I created an application within the project, get some of the details there. I set the IAM policy, and you can see how I set that. And you can scroll further up and see, we created some data sets to hold data in BigQuery. And so there's a wide variety of interactions that you can see. What's nice about the activity stream is you can also look at data from multiple projects simultaneously. So I have another project here. And you can see, we're very active with IAM earlier today. But you can see you've got, the audit log demo here, enterprise ops demo. You can see them, in between, interleave together relatively easily. Now, one thing that you could not do prior to today was look at your data access logs inside the activity stream. You can now do that. So I'm going to click on data access logs. And you can now see all my data access log activity here. So I can look at the queries I was making. But what's nice is actually, you scroll down here and you see these ones with the exclamation point there. And that tells you that this was actually a failed action. So not only do we capture all the successful API actions, we capture all the failures. And when, we'll capture it if it failed because it didn't work, but we'll also capture it because you were denied access. And this is an example where my colleague here, we had pulled in this HR database. And he was trying to join the employee IDs with the compensation. And he didn't have access to the compensation database. And so he was denied that and was not able to see those there. And now I want to talk quickly about the fact that, as we said earlier, the audit logs are available to you in Activity Stream, but we also have this nice tight integration with Stackdriver. So you can look at all of your logs inside the Stackdriver logs viewer, just like you could anywhere else. And you can see the different resources, you can see the different log types, you can expand the nicely structured logs here. And I've actually filtered this by using the text filters. So I was looking for all the job service.insert operations. But I could also filter this by, if I want to see, what did I do? What are the actions that I performed? I can filter those there as well. By virtue of this integration, you can also take advantage of the export capabilities. So I can export these logs for long-term archival and storage to cloud storage. I can also export them to BigQuery, which is actually very valuable because it gives you additional types of insight. And I'm going to show you that right here. So one thing here is, so I'm actually going to look at, use BigQuery to look at the BigQuery audit logs. Because what you can do now is you can gain more insight and get kind of a rough estimate of your utilization and how that translates into your spend. So we created this query here, 7-day spend. I'm going to run the query. And it just takes a second to operate over that. And it sees that over the past 5 days, it looks like I have spent 5 cents on BigQuery. So go me for not spending a lot of money. But I just didn't have a lot of time to play with this. But what's nice about this is that because these are the audit logs, we're also capturing the information around who's doing this. So if I want to find out, so yes, we found out that 5 cents was spent on this. I can instead run this by, query by user, and it'll break it out, and you can see that my work account was responsible for 4 cents. I used my personal account as another way in to check it out, and that was worth 1 cent. And my colleague Amr, he actually didn't rack up any money because he kept getting denied. And so you can see that it's a great use of BigQuery to look at BigQuery's own logs. And now if I go back to the logs viewer, we can actually see, these are the fresh entries that I was just, well, those are different ones. So if I were to go back to like job service.insert, and you can see that, these were the logs that I just triggered a moment ago. So, so just coming quickly back to exports, the one export I didn't touch on already was our ability to export to PubSub. And this gives you the ability to publish your logs to PubSub, where anybody listening to those that you've granted access to can then do further processing on the logs. So if you want to have data flow jobs listening to that and processing your logs, you can do that. But it also means we can partner with a variety of third parties who can also listen on these, and that way it allows you to push your logs to a variety of our partners. Can we switch back to my slides? Thank you. So as we may have heard, we're announcing a number of partnerships today. In particular, Splunk and Tenable, we've partnered with to send logs out of Stackdriver logging to their systems. Log Entries was a partner beforehand. And at this point, I'd like to invite Mark Chenet from Splunk to come up on stage and tell us a little bit more about Splunk, the partnership, and what you can do. Thank you.
Change. So good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Chenet. I'm a product manager for the IT markets team at Splunk. And today, goal number 1 is to make sure that you all know who Splunk is. Number 2, if you're using Splunk and you're deploying on GCP, I want to demonstrate the value that you can get by securing and monitoring your services with Splunk. And 3, of course, everybody wants to see a demo, so I'll show you the demo of integrating Splunk and ingesting some of the logs that Joe just talked about. So Splunk comes from the word spelunking, which means exploring underground caves. These caves can often be viewed as all of these sources of information, data, machine data, that often go unexplored. Unless, of course, there's a mission-critical problem with your services or in security, and all of a sudden, you get all of these stakeholders, your app architects, your developers, your security guys, all wanting today's logs, yesterday's logs, and all the logs to be able to better troubleshoot the problem. So our mission at Splunk is simple. We want to make machine data accessible, usable, and valuable to everyone. Let me walk you through our product portfolio to get a better understanding of what Splunk is. Splunk is a platform for operational intelligence. So this means that we can search, analyze, monitor, and visualize any unstructured data. We're more than just logs. We can monitor mobile performance metrics. We can monitor stream data and any other type of machine data, even oil rig data. And the great thing is we offer this on-premise or in the cloud. Whether you're just getting started with 10 gigabytes of data per day, or you need to grow to several petabytes of data per day, as some of our largest customers use Splunk for today, this is something we can accommodate your needs. And most importantly, who has a hunk in their product? What a great name. I'm sure Eric would love that name. Hunk is our Splunk analytics for Hadoop. So if you have all these data lakes and you don't want to obviously change that data, you just want to be able to search and analyze that data, we can also help you with that. We have a rich ecosystem of applications and add-on that can collect information from all these technologies and help you analyze some of that information. These are built by our partners, our customers, and ourselves. There's over 1,000 of them in our app store, our store for all of our Splunk base. Last, we also offer premium solutions that are pre-built for very specific use case to help your IT operations and security teams address very specific needs. We're not a startup anymore. We've been around for over 10 years. And we have 11,000 customers where we've proven the value of Splunk, of using Splunk to be able to Splunk all this machine data. If you're not on this list yet, I'd love to work with you guys and make sure that you get on this list. So I'm excited to stand here in front of you to announce our Splunk add-on for Google Cloud Platform. It's free on Splunk Base. You can download it today. It'll help you subscribe to any pub/sub events that you have in GCP. You can securely access that information, which includes all of the logs exports that you can define by service and by source, as Joe just talked about. Furthermore, we've also added the ability to subscribe to your Stackdriver monitoring API. So this will give you access to all the streaming performance metrics, whether it's CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk I/O, for your Cloud SQL services, for your BigQuery, compute engine, container engine, into Splunk to unify all that data in one central location. So the partnership between Splunk and GCP was critical for our success in order to empower our customers, you, to get that real-time IT and business insight in securing the reliability of your services. So without further delay, let me show you a demo.
Oh, wrong one. Wrong laptop.
And you may have to log me in here.
That laptop.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, one more slide.
Advance. All right, cool. All right, so we're going to talk about a very specific scenario here. So this is a scenario for Paul. He's a level 3 support analyst. And he was just about to go for happy hour. What are we right now? About 5:50, but he needs to stay here because he's just got a critical problem that he needs to solve. And how he's going to do this is by using Splunk. And our foundation for Splunk is our searching capability. Everything starts with a search. And we automatically index content by host, source type, and time. It's easy for them to go and collect, analyze all of this information centrally from our search interface. Very comprehensive search processing language that allows you to create statistics, apply any arithmetic operators, and several functions to be able to summarize and analyze some of that data. So in this case, we're looking at JSON objects, but any type of unstructured data, we automatically create fields and categories of information that's automatically visualized and analyzed by the payloads that we're looking at. So in this case here, you can see all of the information. We've been able to quickly filter by specific log type. And you can also create quick visualizations from these logs that are being collected. So here Paul wants to be able to see how this data is changing over time. So I'll create a top-end chart to be able to see how my data is doing. So here I see a change by resources that have been changed using some of the activity logs that I'm looking at. And I can change apply any kinds of rich visualization to this data. I can send that to a report. I can create a new dashboard. Or in this case here, I'll go ahead and add it to an existing dashboard. So this is an example dashboard that summarizes all of my GCP log events that I have. All the data can be viewed by service, by source, and I can quickly drill in by specific areas of interest or how things are trending over time. All this information is coming from GCP. On top of that, Paul also has access to machine learning capability. I can go ahead and take, as an example, my Stackdriver cloud monitoring metrics and go and understand some of the numeric outliers, whether I'm trying to predict problems, understand outliers, or forecasting problems. These are all things that are built in natively in the platform. Paul also has access to IT Service Intelligence, which is an IT operation tool that gives you a service-aware view of all of the services that Paul is responsible to monitor. All of the KPIs are all powered by the searches that we just talked about. And here, Paul could see which KPIs are impacted, and the SplunkDepot.com, in this case, is e-commerce site, which one is impacted. He also has access to the ITSI glass tables. Who has a Visio diagram in their environment that represents their ecosystem, right? Or some kind of a scribble on the whiteboard that you want to be able to use and be able to put KPIs on top of that. That's what glass table allows you to do. All these services that you have, you can pull these KPIs. And the great thing is you can drill into these KPIs to get more detailed analysis on the KPIs that are impacting the services. I can move these swim lanes. This is called the ITSI deep dive. And this is where Paul, in this case, a level 3 support analyst, may spend a lot of time trying to triage what's going on in his environment and when the problem happened, and what's that leading indicator that may have caused the problem in my environment. IT Service Intelligence also comes with modules. These modules is just a normalization of well-known technologies, as an example, operating systems, load balancers, and others, where it normalizes the data and provides more drill-down capability into specific diagnostics views to help you more triage problems. In this case here, we're seeing a degradation in some of the network. I know we always want to blame the network, but in this case here, we want to go do a little bit more assessment to find out why we're seeing a degradation in the network utilization. One of the questions that Paul always asks himself is, what changed in my environment? By ingesting the GCP activity logs, I know exactly what changed. And I'm also seeing that there's a trend here that's abnormal or different than what I've previously seen. By drilling into these dashboards that I have, I'm able to go and understand what changed, who changed it, and when did it change. So in this case here, without even the need to create a war room and engage my DBA, my network guy, I can go and talk to this one person that likely did a change that was during unplanned work hours. You don't go do changes during a peak workload. So in this case, I have all access to the raw data. Any visualizations that we offer in Splunk, you can drill down to the actual payload, the unstructured data to further analyze it. And in this case, Paul can just pick up the phone, call Mark, and find out why he did those changes to the firewall. As a call to action, love you guys. If you're not using Splunk today, it's free. It's available on our website, or you can get it from a SaaS. You can download it from our user in a cloud environment, or download it on-premise. We're at booth 39 if you have any other question. And if you're not using the GCP add-on yet, just launched today, please go ahead and give it a try. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mark. Really excited about that integration. Now, I'd like to introduce everybody to Atanu Neogi and Nitin Navare from BMC. We're going to tell you a little bit more about BMC and the integrations with GCP. Come on up.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. Hi, I'm Nitin Navare.
Atanu Neogi. We'll very briefly, in the remaining time available, talk about BMC software and its collaboration with Google in the context of Google Compute Cloud to give you enterprise cloud offering that's hybrid, heterogeneous, secure, trusted, governed, and monitored. So if you typically think of your application lifecycle, this is the general loop around it. And you have the design stage of building applications and deploy them, and then subsequently you scale both for performance and analytics purposes, as well as you monitor for compliance, security, and patch. In this particular picture, heterogeneity becomes a recurrent theme, right? You want to design it for single compute instances, for multi-tier applications across infrastructure, platform, database, containers. And then you want to deploy wherever you want. You want to deploy it in your on-premise data center, in Google Compute, in Google App Engines. You want to deploy it in other public cloud offerings. And subsequently, you want to be able to monitor them, scale them as necessary based on your predefined policies. You want to check for compliance failures. You want to check for security intrusions, and subsequently remediate those failures and intrusions and scale accordingly based on monitoring data. So for governance and trust, you have the mandatory requirements, the industry compliance regulations, the PCI, HIPAA, and all the standard ones. But also, every single organization is different, right? And they have their organization-specific compliance policies. And some of those compliance policies are automated, and some of those compliance policies you build based on the data that you have available. And applying those compliance policies, finding the failures, and remediating them in a manner that's fully governed by your policies itself is a significant requirement for all enterprises. So in this Google BMC collaborative partnership, we have you covered, as Joe started with the presentation. The Google Cloud Platform and BMC, you can design your application workload. You can deploy them in a heterogeneous manner. You can scale them, monitor them, and you can perform all aspects of compliance, security, and patch. For the hybrid cloud and compliance, SecOps, and patch side, BMC offers cloud lifecycle management, which provides full hybrid cloud solution across all stacks. And subsequently, your workloads can be further scanned for compliance failures and security intrusions and patch issues and remediated using the server automation and network automation solutions. For the analytics part, I hand it over to Nitin.
So on the monitoring front, the slides are highlighting a couple of BMC products which are delivered via SaaS. They are basically TrueSight Pulse and TrueSight Analytics. There are more products which are available on the monitoring front, which you guys can check out on the BMC side. Pulse basically focuses on infrastructure monitoring, and the key value proposition there is, and I'll be demoing it later, is the 1-second resolution, and you'll be able to see that. On the analytics, TrueSight Analytics front, it's focusing on IT operation analytics. You can combine your business and infrastructure data sources. The data can come from anywhere. It doesn't have to be a BMC product. And that product is going to be released in April. TrueSight Pulse is available right now.
So this particular picture depicts, in a kind of minimized way or a minimalistic way, the entire ecosystem of BMC solutions, focusing on the enterprise ops aspects. So the BMC Cloud Lifecycle Management lets you design and deploy, as we'll demonstrate a little later, hybrid cloud solutions across workloads distributed across the stack of different types of offerings and different types of cloud. Subsequently, you can have full-scale server and network automations based on the design, deploy, monitor, remediate policies. And they offer industry-leading compliance, patch, and SecOps solutions. And as Nitin talked about, you can then subscribe to the various monitoring and analytics applications. All of these BMC solutions are connected to the flagship change management, ITSM, and CMDB solutions from BMC. So with that, we'll switch over to the first part of our demo, which is hybrid cloud management.
No, it's still the same laptop. Next slide.
Next slide. Just go to the next slide.
OK. All right. So this is BMC Cloud Lifecycle Management solution. What we're seeing here is a building of a service blueprint. The blueprint lets you design your cloud offering once and subsequently deploy it wherever you want. in a policy-driven manner, and those policies can be plugged into different types of automation schemes, including capacity-driven placement, charge-driven placement, tenancy-driven placement. So here we are typically working on a LAMP stack, and which is to be deployed on one single particular VM instance. That VM instance is mapped onto an installable resource or a particular image, which will show that it is pointing to a Google Cloud image. And once this particular blueprint is decided to be deployed, the deployment is driven and the last mileage decisions are made entirely by the policies you have set up. And it could be deployed in Google Compute Cloud. It could be deployed in any of the infrastructure stack you have chosen for your on-premise environment or any of the other public cloud offerings. Here in this demo, we'll show that once this blueprint is deployed to the Google Compute Cloud, how subsequently that information is absorbed in a normalized, seamless manner in cloud lifecycle management, and further the compliance and patch actions are done in an automated manner. So the blueprint designers have a grammar that's embedded and that's manageable through APIs and has a version control scheme that's composable. So it's a full-scale SDDC. And then we show that that particular blueprint was pointing to this image in Google Compute Cloud. And once this blueprint was provisioned or deployed, it led to a Google Compute instance that is that will be further remediated for compliance failures. And you see that the installable resource, which is highlighted, which is the pointer to the Google Compute instance. However, it can be pointed to any particular types of VM images or container images or other types of stack that you want your workloads to run on. The blueprint images, the blueprint grammar is fully public and controlled through REST APIs, and they can be used as documents. Looking into the Google Compute instances, so this is the footprint in the Google Cloud, and we see that that's a running instance with one single public IP. You can have multiple IPs based on the policies that you have set up for Blueprint. And this is the BMC Cloud Lifecycle Management where that particular VM appears. And in a manner that's kind of seamless and transparent, the consumers of your cloud doesn't need to know where exactly the workload is running. And all the full lifecycle management of this particular workload can be performed from the single pane of glass. And BMC offers a set of APIs by which your cloud offerings across all of the different multiple hybrid clouds can be managed using single type of APIs. With that, we'll move on to the next part of the demo, where the cloud lifecycle management solution, where the VM was deployed, can be used to check for compliance failures. So this is the server automation suite, which does compliance checks. So in this case, we see this for this particular server, there was an automated compliance run for a particular CVE, which had led to this compliance failure. And that compliance failure was detected the moment the compliance run was performed. And then it was automatically remediated based on the policy that you have set up for your public cloud offerings. And the remediation job completed successfully. Subsequent to that, another compliance run was made to ensure that this compliance remediation was completed successfully, and it did resolve the problem that had triggered the compliance failure to begin with. This policy or this mechanism is applicable not only to custom compliance policies, but all types of industry standards like HIPAA, SOX, and they come out of the box, the support for all the industry standard compliances. For custom compliances, you can build custom compliance policies for CVEs and beyond, and any other kind of particular problems or intrusions you are concerned about in your public cloud offerings. And they apply seamlessly and transparently across all of your offerings in public cloud, in all different types of public cloud, as well as in your enterprise data centers. With that?
Sure. All right.
So switch over to the.
All right. Can you switch over to my laptop? OK. All right. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is how you can use BMC TrueSight Pulse to monitor a VM which has been deployed on the Google Cloud platform. The demo is going to focus on the VM which is deployed on Google Cloud, but the Pulse can be used for monitoring your VMs or any infrastructure anywhere on-prem or cloud. So what you have here is a BMC TrueSight Pulse dashboard. In terms of the setup, what we have is BMC Google Demo 3 is a VM which has been deployed. It has been deployed using the CLM blueprint, and it has been deployed with the Pulse meter, which is essentially an agent which sits on the VM. And there is an Nginx server, which is also being monitored. We also have a custom plugin which monitors the number of connections from a single client, and that's going to be important for us for the demo. So as you can see here, the dashboard is being updated in real time. We are tracking the Nginx connection handled, CPU, inbound network traffic, and the single client connections. Now Joe here is fiddling with his phone, looking bored. But what he's going to do is he's going to trigger a denial of service attack as we speak. The dashboard will update fairly quickly, and you will start seeing a spike in the Nginx connections handled. This is a live demo, so hopefully everything is working fine in terms of the network connection, and you should start seeing the spike. So as you can see here, the number of connections handled by the Nginx server has spiked up. You can also see the alarm bell turning red, essentially indicating that an alarm was triggered. You can also see that the connections have been initiated from a single client. I also just received an email which basically shows that the number of connections have been exceeded, and basically we had a threshold set for this purpose. Now, if you see over here, I can also, because of the custom plugin, I can find out where the connections are being initiated from. So essentially, it is this IP address 104.197.208 and 113. The demo script is triggered or is supposed to run for around 20 seconds. Yeah. So now things are back to normal. The alarm condition has disappeared, and I also got another email indicating that the problem has been resolved. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Joe.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Let's all give
Switch
them
back to the slides, please.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. And 1 second. Those were just our backup slides in case we weren't able to do it live. So first of all, thank you, everyone, for still being here. I know happy hour starts the moment we walk out of this room. I'm very excited about that. And so one of the things you might be asking, well, in the theme of this conference, what is next? Well, happy hour is next. But tomorrow, you should go to the container management talk about Google Container Engine and Kubernetes at 11 o'clock. There's also a talk at 2:30 on identity and access management. And I would strongly encourage you to visit our partners in their booths. Both Splunk and BMC have booths out there, and they can show you this more in detail. I know they'd be happy to talk to you. We're really excited about these partnerships. And like I said earlier, we have this theme, we've got you covered. We're either going to do it ourselves, or we're going to work with great partners to help provide the functionality that you need. And with that, thank you very much.